This is the year 1937 in Mukden, Manchukuo, which is the capital of this country run by the Japanese. And we'll be seeing repeated scenes as we go along of that particular area. Now, this particular individual is a friend of mine, a very close friend, named John Patton Davies. He was a vice consul, U.S. vice consul at that time.
Yeah. And the bodies.
And the bodies were those picked up every night by a detail of those lying on the streets. And you notice these bodies like this here, they're picked. All their clothes are picked off, and the bodies just lay there.
They were beggars, right?
These were all beggars, just like this here. And these are tragic things. And of course, this speaks for themselves. These are the shops we see. It's cold there,
Yeah.
and they're all bundled up. This is the city wall of Mukden at that time. I'm on a train now, and I'm going up north to Harbin, which is the northern part where the big Russian settlement. These speak for themselves. Harbin is the big Russian colony. Oh, this here is rather interesting. They have a lot of celebrations there, and this speaks for themselves. I wish it was in color. And this is all very exciting. You see their jagons and things like this here. I got a little trouble one of the few times I ever got in difficulty with the Japanese because I was taking movies there, and there was a Japanese army. That one right over there. He was very unhappy me. I was taking movies, and he ordered me out of there, you see. But this used to be the original palace of the Manchu before they conquered China around 1700, thereabout,
Yeah.
you see. I'll give you a guess. You tell me what that is.
Yeah. The entries in the marathon.
Yeah, you see these big. There's walls there to build going into the imperial compound. You see it all built right around there. That's the entrance there. These are priests. Stores. Now we're outside the city. Oh, this is Jack Leggett, an Englishman, was doing surgery over at the medical school. Now, the reason we were doing surgery and everybody was excited, for reasons we couldn't make out. There he is again. You'll see me in a minute. That's me coming down there, I think. That's me. The medical students. The reasons we all got excited that we seldom encountered medical students, cancer in that area. We had a lot of old people. This was the founder of our hospital, Cragen. And this is the entrance. This way they came in to our compound. It's sort of muddy winter. Oh, now we lived in the compound. Here is the modest home we missionaries lived in. I lived with Hugh Taylor, the pathologist, and there was G.C. Cummings and myself. There's a chief. That's Colin Simpson. He was the chief of the service. I wish I could tell you about those.
What were they?
These were Jowsas, and everybody loved them. And what they were, Huey, they were hot meat with dough over, like pretla.
Yeah.
And you get them for about a nickel, and you eat them in these real cold weather. They're the most delicious thing you ever eat in the world.
Yeah.
There's the entrance to the imperial grounds. You know, this was not very exciting going in there, but this is the thing you always go to. Students there. Here's the grounds a different time. I think Vignette's stories was better than anything else you
Yeah.
say this is what happened, and this was the most interesting thing.
Yeah. Another one of their celebrations.
Which the Japanese were running to make the Chinese come out to do these things. See, these are you notice the small feet that she's got.
Yeah.
These what we used to get our hairbrushes from the long-haired pigs. Now this is a beggar. They end up dying in short time. Now here's what we lived in modest circumstances. This is the founder of hospital, Dr. Cree.
More beggars.
Yeah, you'll be seeing him stripped dead. Mind you, this is 1937 with the Japanese. This is the Mukden Club, and this was a place where the foreign colony, that's the white people, congregated, and they had pool tables and big gambling going on there. This is one of our Chinese professors there. Now this is a country fellow coming back, going another parade. Now this was Jack Leggett. He was performing surgery on the mixed parotid gland there. This is one of our Chinese resident doctors. Here's Jack Leggett operating again. Another resident. We used chloroform anesthesia at that time, which was we seldom did in the United States except for delivery. And another thing, all the surgeons, there's Colin Simpson, the chief, medical students. And we all wore high rubber boots like butchers do. I never saw that before.
Okay.
It was during my stay as a volunteer surgeon, and I was teaching endocrinology at that time in '37. I was called in consultation to see the then Emperor of Manchukuo, who was the grandson of the old Empress of China. And what had happened, why they called me was, because I was a young man, but I had practiced in Japan itself proper. None of these men had. And when the emperor had a kidney stone, at the South Manchurian Railroad Hospital, which is the Japanese medical school, we didn't have airplanes and all that to fly people in Japan. They didn't want to contact the missionaries, so they called me to go over to visit him. Well, luckily for all concerned, he passed his kidney stone, and everybody was very, very happy. And I remember he gave me a gift of, but he didn't. One of his entourage gave me a gift of a silk scarf. I don't know whatever happened. It was very, very lovely.
What emperor was this?
What?
What was the name?
It was Emperor Pu. I have my license plate in my car named after him.
Yes.
Pu-50.
More surgery.
I had trouble with Jack Leggett. Not over surgery. It was over dancing lessons. And it turned out that the Duke of Windsor was going to be made king of,
England.
King of England. And there was big celebrations planning to there. We're having Scottish reel dances. I was in that. But we're also going to have ballroom dancing. Big dance. And I always danced a lot. And they asked me, they knew I was going out dancing a lot. I spoke then too. And by gosh, we were dancing cheek to cheek, all the things what we always do. He said no. In England, they taught him dancing like arms apart like this, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And we had a big doodah because we were to teach them all how to do this. I went out. This is a wedding of one of our Chinese doctors. The group was there's Hugh Taylor, who I live with, the pathologist. And this was obviously, it was a good Christian marriage. This speaks for itself. We call it the Mookton Spa for exercise. Now they had a department store, primarily for Japanese. It was indoors. It was rather impressive. Now I was going up, I think, to Harbin and Manchuria, up to North Manchuria, where the large colony of Russians lived. This was where they came into Manchuria during the revolution, the Russian Revolution. They crossed Siberia and they came in there. There's Hugh Taylor. Damn good golfer. Notice that form. That's G.C. Cummings. I forgot his first name. We used to call him G.C. These two of our high-ranking physicians. Believe you me, it's cold. It's cold here. We got this Chinese checkers, I guess. Medical students. I challenge, you'll have to tell me what this is all about. That's Korean, that little kid there.
Yeah.
This makes very good fertilizer for your food. And they pick it up every day and they make fertilizer. Now, our medical school was outside the city because when Dr. Cragen wanted to set up a clinic there, the warlord wouldn't give him permission to be in the city. So they did it outside. Interesting enough, the story is that one day, this is waste material, that one day he wanted to have some bodies for anatomy dissections. So he asked the old man, the old marshal there who was running or China then, for permission. He said, okay, because he'd been taking care of one of his wives. The day comes up, a truck comes up, and there's 5 Chinese prisoners in there. He says, here's your prisoners. Oh no, you made a mistake. We mean dead bodies. We don't want any live. Oh, well, we'll take you there quickly. We took around the block. We hear boop, 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 boop. They brought the bodies back and said, here are your bodies. He had to accept them. Now we're in the Philippines. This is 1940. I don't know how he got there. And we're having first aid training in. You see, these were the gold mines up there. And every year there was contests on first aid, you see. And there's big awards. I was one of the judges at that time. I still have the program. Oh, she was a very famous, that was my home in Korea then. Now this was my modest little home I was living in there, in North Korea. I only had 5 servants. Samu, the housekeeper. I had a cook, a laundry woman, a chauffeur, and just a regular boy. Here we're going over to the French gold mines in North Korea. This was run by here's my boy there. See, this is one of our boys.
These pictures are back in Korea now.
Now we're back in Korea.
What year is this?
This is also 1936. Now, you always hear the barefoot doctors there. We didn't have that term, but we had Dr. Kim. He was the only doctor. But we had about 8, 9, 10 others that we called barefoot doctors, and they would love to do everything. They did. You had to hold them back. These were the gold. This was the second largest gold mine. The largest gold mine. This was the largest in the Japanese Empire. And I took over the locum tenens for Eugene L. Power. He was the medical director, former missionary. And I took over for him for about a year. These are the homes they lived over there. This was my modest house. It stretched out all the ways there.
Are these pictures before or after the first pictures?
These are before.
Before Manchukuo.
Yeah. I spent about a year here, and from here I received that appointment to go up there. There's my dog Mitzi, and that's me going down. What a spader. Well, watch out there, Len. You're going to fall down. That's Mitzi. During the summertime, we played tennis here. There's Dr. Eugene L. Power. There is our staff. There's Dr. Kim with the 4+ shoes. And this, we tackle everything. There's this Mrs. Power. That's Sangwoo. She was beautiful. She ran everything. Oh, this is they call him the head of our Mr. Lauer and his daughter. He was the general manager. Now I'm going up to Manchuria.
Okay.
The story, how this gold mine came under jurisdiction of the Americans is very simple. At the end of the Russo-Japanese War, Japan took over Korea and gave concessions to the French, the Americans and British to dig gold. At that time, going all the way back to Indiana, little town, there was a principal of a small school, Columbia City or something like that, and he'd got in trouble with one of the girls, one of his students, and he went down to the railroad station and said, give me a ticket as far away from here as possible. He ends up in a place in West Korea, in a seaport called Sungmanfu. And there he got into a poker game. And by God, if he didn't win the American concession, the American concession became out to be the most valuable one. he became very, very wealthy. And what he did was he would bring in young fellows from the town there to work when they graduated from high school, to work at the gold mines. And they had 6 months to learn Korean, and then, and either they learned to speak or they had to go back. Here are a couple of our mines. There's my home again. This was our hospital. It went way, way down. And the patient was admitted to the hospital. It's Steve Eric. The patient was admitted to the hospital. The families came along here and they did all the cooking and all the feeding. Now, there was a policy of the gold mines. When they first take over, the natives were very hostile to foreigners. So they made a rule that anybody can go to our clinics and get free medical care and surgery as their way of showing goodwill. So the result is they came from all parts of North Korea, 100 miles or so. And we'd see patients in the morning, and we'd operate in the afternoon. The family would take care of them. They would feed them. And we'd always tell them we had good results. Because we had good results, we got a lot of people who come from the other areas in that community there.
Yeah.
Now we're going from our gold mines to Seoul. This is the capital of Korea. Now this is a city of many millions of people. And at that time, it may be 100,000 people, 200,000 people at most. I have an outfit like this up here. This is the city of Mukden as it was in 1930s. There's Song Mu. She was delightful. There's the old cook. There's the houseboy. Now, we use wood for heating, you see. These are street scenes. This one, the home next door to me. Oh, what the dove is his name? He was.
Okay.
And every Saturday night, they always have an excuse for a party. And a lot of them get sort of potted. After all, they see the same faces all the time. I couldn't get into the party because I'm working 24 hours a day. I think this was a New Year's Eve party. There's Mr. Lauer. Oh, this is New Year's Eve and everybody's all potted. Oh, this is my famous personal horse,
What was its name?
Unson.
Unsan.
There's a picture of me later on taking me around.
And this is your
Yeah.
this your
I
house?
had this is my house staff.
And what's the name of the little dot?
Mitzi.
Mitzi.
Your household staff.
Now this is my household staff.
Now this is the doctors.
Yeah. And I got myself into a real problem right off the bat. We were doing surgery one day. We're ready to start. Give me a scalpel. They forgot to give me one. They didn't have one there. So I got up and I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I bawled him out. I'm not sweet then as I am today. Then at that night I got called to the hospital. In the middle of the night, it's cold. I open up and I trip over somebody. Here is this fellow here, lying on the step of a thing. He had taken some narcotic or something, poisoned himself. He had lost face. He was going to commit suicide in front of my door. So that's the time I realized that you cannot allow these people. Here's our going on a home visit. I still got this outfit. There's Mitzi.
Now, what did you try to make Mitzi with?
And there we are, going out for home visits.
On Windsor.
You
Right.
dress up this way to go to visits?
Oh, you have to, you see, you gotta keep custom. Absolutely. Sometimes she is slightly recalcitrant.
Yeah.
We go for miles and miles, up mountains, down hills, rivers.
Yeah. You cannot even get out of your yard.
Oh, there's Simon. Oh, she was delightful. She was the prettiest housekeeper down. She was Dr. Now, the Japanese government, it's very interesting. Whenever they have a hum, they take all the students up there and they make them line up with the Japanese flag. And they used to have plague of, oh, this is a funeral.
Go on.
And they used to have plagues of smallpox there. So they said you got to have smallpox injections. They order out and all the school children line up to get their smallpox injections, period. And they killed it. We had a lot of Koreans there with pockmarks on it, but they kill it by directions. This is the town of Hokuchin. Here's the gold mines. I think they use Rinso soap. I don't know. There's an old gentleman. Isn't he handsome? Oh, he's one of our next door neighbors. There's the,
What's that?
that was our husband. Oh, there's Jan and Francis McCoy. This is where the farmers live out there. And they heat up through the floor. They sleep on the floor. They're going hunting now.
What are you talking about?
I found it's very economic to get double
What you
exposure.
talking about?
Now, a couple years after that, they began to use hydraulic draining, you know, high pressure water.
Yeah.
That room time. That occurred after I left.
What did the hydraulic pressure do? It ruined it?
Oh, they just dig up the ground, you see.
Yeah.
And that's the way they carry stuff, and they load on stuff that's back there.
Yeah.
These are just streets. These where the natives live, the Korean. This is one of the school teachers. She's also from Indiana. These are the school kids. Only white kids went here. This was for the.
Okay.
Well, this is the way most of the Korean mothers carry their children about there. And these kids had a great deal of respect for their parents, just like our children do here in the United States, sometimes. Oh, now I think we're in Japan. Yes, we are in Japan. This was before I got to Korea.
Well, I didn't load this film. Someone else
Oh,
did.
Dr. That's Dr. McSparron's little car and chauffeur. This is where I first started off in Korea, in Yokohama, Japan. I did a locum term for Dr. McSparron, tall, wonderful person who was a American missionary doctor before he decided to go into practice. And he went into practice, and I took over for him to enable him to take his first vacation in years. So when he left, it made me the only American doctor in private practice in all of Japan at that time. And it was my very first post. This was the very first post I had in the Far East, where I practiced medicine for about going on 6 years to up to immediately before Pearl Harbor. How I was given permission to practice medicine is rather unusual. I didn't have to take any state board examinations or nothing. The Japanese did not like the Americans. But what I did was a simple thing. One day I was walking to Dr. McSparron's office.
What is this, by the way?
Oh, this is Admiral Perry.
This is to recreate Admiral Perry's
Yeah, that's right.
visit to Japan.
I was walking to the hospital, to Dr. McSparron's office, through the park along the ocean, in front of the New Grand Hotel. It was bitter cold, and there I saw lying on the ground a Japanese student, in their typical garb, and I bent over him and I saw that he was in shock. He was cold, and I lifted him up and put him on a chair and covered him with my coat. I had to get him to the hospital, so I walked over to the nearby hotel, and I got a taxi cab driver, and I said, "Would you please take him to a hospital immediately?" He did that, and I gave him about a 10-yen note, which was worth about $10 then, and I walked my merry way, and all of a sudden, there's a Japanese policeman. "Are you the person who picked up this boy and gave him your coat and all that and put him on the chair?" "Yes." "Why?" I said, "This is what we do where I come from. He had to be taken care of," and so forth and so forth. Well, I didn't know at that time that I was under careful scrutiny by the Japanese. And this very gesture, that male sons are very, very important to the Japanese. 2 days later, a girl comes over to Dr. McSparron's home, Japanese girl, and there is a cake covered with a silk thing. This is for the American doctor. It's a gift. But Dr. McSparron refused to accept it because he was the physician for the American Gramophone Company, which is RCA, and he does physicals for these Japanese. They thought they were trying to bribe him. He refused to accept it. Thomas-san, who was our nurse and also our housekeeper, asked him, and they told him that they were very, very grateful, and this is a gift from his family to me, but she didn't know whether he lived or not. But this was reported to the Japanese police. The next thing comes in, a police officer in plain clothes comes in Dr. McSparron's office, says, "You have an American doctor here." "That's right." "She got license?" "No." "Well, we got to do something about that." He says, "Well, what we're going to do is the governor of the chief physician of that district of Japan where Yokohama's located has a son who just graduated, and what we'll do is he'll come in every week to sign all narcotic prescriptions and everything, and we'll say that you are studying under him." And we became very close friends. With this, that having a son was so important to the Japanese that they gave me permission to practice medicine in Korea. They gave me permission to practice medicine in Manchukuo when Americans were hated.
Yeah.
This was an incredible thing.
And allowed Dr. McSparron to take a vacation.
It allowed him to take an experience. That's that famous mountain.
Mount Fuji?
Mount Fuji. That's Mount Fuji. I think I'm going to Hong Kong now. Yeah, we're going into Hong Kong. Somewhere along the line we saw some whales there. I don't know if we got it in here or not. Oh, we had a big typhoon there, and this was the Empress, the Hoover,
President Hoover?
President Hoover. It got on the rocks. There it was on there at that time. And the American crew at that time was noble. They got off the boat and they abandoned all the passengers.
You should enter that in the America's Cup race. I don't think it's 12.
Yeah, but you could see it. This was the biggest boat of the American President airline. American President Lines was the Hoover, President Hoover. This is Hong Kong, as you can guess.
It looks like an aircraft carrier.
That was.
Looks like someone knocked the camera aside.
Seems to me we're back in Korea again. Oh, what the hell is her name? She was a bitch. Oh, this is this is the foreign hospital in Yokohama. Foreign, this is where the white people went to. And Dr. McSpirit's sister, he was just a businessman. This is Yokohama. This here is the famous Imperial Hotel in Yokohama. And that was when they had the 1923 earthquake. All the buildings was blown down except that building. And who was that famous architect? Lloyd?
Frank Lloyd Wright.
He designed that hotel. This is the Ginza.
Where's this?
These are Yokohamas. These in Yokohama, maybe Tokyo.
1936.
That was 1936, 1936, 37. Oh, this was a party. They gave a farewell party when I left Yokohama. And Tamasan got all her friends and doctors there. And they had me at this magnificent restaurant there. These little who's this handsome fellow? It's me. I didn't wear glasses at that time. But these restaurants are absolutely magnificent. They'll have room for hundreds and hundreds of people, and these stores open up, expand, make. Now we're in Nanking, China, or Hankou. Yeah, we're in Hankou now. Or is it Nanking? Yeah, this is Nanking now. This is the British, French battle, not battleship.
Looks like a Corvette.
We'll see the Panay before long.
The what?
The Panay, which was sunk by the Japanese. There was a river boat there. And this almost brought about a war in 1937. This is around the Yangtze River. This one I got involved as a physician for the International Red Cross. This is the Yangtze River. I think we're in Wicot again. I may be wrong, but
Okay.
I think there or in Shanghai, one of the other two there. No, there's still river boats here. think this is the Panay, which was sunk. That's right, that was the Panay. How are these bundles? Now we are in Nanking. This was the hotel. This was about a week or so before. These Shanghai Chef troops. This was about less than a week before they vacated the city. And about maybe a week, 10 days. That's his headquarters. Before the rape of Nanking.
Mhm.
There's the Panay right there. That's it. And that was sunk with, I almost got on that darn thing here, but I decided I was going to go the other way.
Yeah.
The French, there we are again. I think it's a British boat here. That's a military port. We get on this boat trying to get from Nanking to Shanghai, and we only got about a few hours and this damn boat stops, and we're on our own, and we end up going on launches and junks and everything on these canals to get around the Japanese. You hear the shooting in the distance.
And you got sick, didn't you?
Yeah, and then we all got sick. I thought I died. These are funeral mounds. Oh, if they wanted all my letter of credit and traveler checks, I'd have given it to them. There's some medicine for pain. Life goes on. You see wars. You can hear the shooting in the distance. Life goes on. That's quack.
I guess you're on the riverboat now, or whatever it was, the Chinese junk you were on downriver.
Well, I got all kind. I was in one of these for a while. We got all kind of stuff. I got on a motorboat there one time. But this one, the canals, and we went down here. We're going this way. They're going that way. You've seen this.
Well, not recently.
Now we were on a motorboat. And what saved us, we had a Chinese businessman in his family who quit his book, and he managed to get us transferred from here to there. And so now we're in Shanghai in front of the British consulate. And the seats, the hoist. I think that was the Houston, I think, Huey.
Yeah. That was an American superstructure.
That was the Houston. I don't know who she was. Oh, this is a very monumental thing. This is time when the Japanese army marched into the international settlement for the first time. This was most terrible. And all of a sudden, somebody throws a bomb on them, and they suddenly everything splits out. And this was great tension on that time. This had never happened before. And we laughed. He said, boy, these are some soldiers. And these are the same ones beat the pants out of us a year or two, couple years later. Now we're going to see our American Marines marching there in the racetrack there in defiance of them, you see. Watch, you're going to see all of a sudden somebody throws a bomb and they'll break up. There they are. Oh, this was great tension there. wound up again, they start marching again. Who would have thought that these same soldiers would beat the pants out of us? Here's our American Marines, where we proud of them. Listen to them. Quite different from the other, right?
Yeah.
This was in the Admiral Yarnell, the little fireman, was the head of them, you see. And we're going to see them marching shortly. It was only a couple of years later. Here they're searching everybody for guns. Now this was a missionary area here, and the people line up for food. These are trying. There's Admiral Yarnell. You're going to see them march now. These they call it. There's a hotel where I was staying at the Park Hotel. They used to be clear. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I forget what outfit Marines they were, but this was in defiance of the Japanese to say they're not going to push the Americans around, you see, after they marched in there. And he was ready to go to war with the Japanese over the sinking of the Panay. This was an international crisis.
I was already sunk by now.
Yeah, that was the reason of all this.
Yeah.
After the Panay came in, President Roosevelt gave him tone, we won't stand for it and so forth. And the Japanese says, so what? So they went and marched into the international settlement. The next thing, Admiral Yarnell got instructions to get his things out and to march audience. And here they're marching now. And to show that we're not going to be pushed around. These were professional, these soldiers.
Yeah.
They were down in Mexico, they were in all these places. These were real soldiers. Quite a little bit different what they got now.
What would happen to these men during the war?
I think a lot of them got captured, Huey. Either killed or captured. I think they went to the Philippines, a lot of them got captured. These are street scenes along the Bund there, where people live all the time. It was rather tragic. The boat people. This is the Bund there. The Bund means where the bay. And these pictures are not good. They used to be better. That's the Hoover, I think, isn't it? No, the
Houston?
Houston, I think. Or is that the Houston? I don't
I
remember.
think it's the same ship.
Yeah. But there's so much traffic coming in there. And these here were Japanese boats. Liner bringing troops.
Yeah.
They'd come in 10, 15, 20 boats at a time. Look, they'd fight to get one of the things, you see. There's I forget his name. I was going from here to Hong Kong, I think. And we got off here. This is Amoy, Amammo. I went on this ocean liner. I went on this. I went visiting here.
Yeah.
This is Amoy. It's an ocean city. This gets what we call the Cantonese.
Gotta fix the film.
Before you start talking.
This is the Philippines shortly after I arrived there. It was the Philippine Medical Association's uh, national meeting in Zamboanga in Mindanao. And this where all the Muslims, Huramontado, go around killing people and all that. This is Magellan's Cross, where Magellan got killed years ago, and that is Jeeves, one of my dearest friends. And that's the cross of Magellan where he got killed,
Yeah.
1600 years ago. That handsome man there is me.
Yeah.
Now they're dancing on this. These are all doctors. This is the National Convention. You're going to see them doing the Big Apple and all these other fancy dancing there. Interesting enough, years later, when we arrived in Zamboanga, I pick up a newspaper on Sunday saying how this convention was supposed to go there and it was canceled at the last minute. And here we're there. Absolutely incredible. This is what they call the Big Apple. You see, you tap each other in your back, and we call cutting in when you go dancing, you see.
Yeah.
And this was, here we are here. These were good days in the Philippines.
Yeah.
It was prosperity in the Sugar Islands and all that. There's Jeeves over on the left. It was all crowded. We slept there. The only trouble, there was very, very few restrooms there for all these people. There's Zamboanga. I wish I had color, but I didn't. But you can see these beautiful sails on there. This is disaster now, Huey.
Yeah.
This never occurred, according to the newspaper. I got the newspaper article.
You got the newspaper after it happened?
No, they say this never happened. It was canceled at the last minute. And here we're all down there.
So you had it anyways.
Huey, this is in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh.
In Columbus, Ohio, about 1960, I pick up a Sunday paper, and somebody wrote a news column how they supposed to have this convention, and it never occurred.
Yeah. Oh.
Here, that's a bolo there.
Yeah.
Now this was the club over there where all the foreigners sat around, you see, and they drank and reminisced from World War I. There's Jeeves there. He died about 2 years ago. These are military troops here. We call them what they call Filipino scouts. They're the head officers were American officers, but they had Filipino officers and troops under them. And these were really, really good, capable fellows. This never happened, Huey.
Shows you how much you can trust the papers.
Yeah, it never happened.
Well, how long was it?
What? Oh, it was a convention, 3 to 5 days there, and the boat drove, went down there, and it brought us back up to where we came from, you see.
Yeah.
I picked it up at Cebu. Oh, now this, yeah. Now tradition is, in the Philippines, when we always go out in the evening, you always put white clothes on, and as soon as you go indoors, you take off your coats. Mind you, there was, there's George Osorio, one of my dear, dear friends. There's Larita. Oh, there's Addison Kinney. He got murdered by a Filipino planner, and he was our best friend. He was a general superintendent. They wrote him up. Oh, there he is, Buddy Caudian, Davidson. And he was primarily responsible for my taking over the hospital, getting in the Philippines. It's a long story how he was there. Very handy. There's Bill Dahl, a Scotsman. I used to live with him until I got my new home. He was in the Scots Guards in World War I.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sugar man. Oh, Olive Waddell. She was wonderful. And they were originally from Australia. We corresponded for a long time. Her mother was so beautiful. Mrs. Hayes. She's the one who used that 4711 Clo, which I still use.
Yeah.
Now this is our hospital in the Philippines. Now nurses are different from those here. They wore caps and white uniforms. And this is Kenneth Osorio. He visited with us. Years ago, he was given up for dead. And I went ahead, and the priest came in to give him the last rites. He's convulsing and all that, blood pressure all the way over. I said, got to do something. So I put a needle in his spine to take off some fluid there because he was under pressure. And all of a sudden, it takes his side and all that fluid out, and he goes to sleep. And I came out to tell the family, well, something's happened. They all started crying, and the priest had given them the last rites, but relieving this fluid from his spine and from the fluid from his blood there. All of a sudden, my gosh, there's Gwendolyn. That,
First celium.
he came along and
Survived?
he survived. This is over at the Bacola Country Club. I never knew he had a very acute fulminating nephritis, and getting off the blood from his arm. And I opened up to take some blood off. It shot up to the ceiling, and as soon as it shot up, and I looked at him and said, "My God, he's sleeping." And about an hour, about 30 minutes later, he starts urinating for the first time in about a week. It was an acute hemorrhagic nephritis. This was one of the great archers. This is July 4th party. Oh, there's some other people watching around. I remember her. He's an Englishman there. BA, British American Tobacco. There's Gwendolyn and me. This was the original Gwendolyn.
Yes.
Oh, and he was also. This is a July 4th party. That was a big event. It was hot there, Huey. This is the country club there. Why is these short, chubby fellows always so funny?
No.
Oh, what the heck's there?
Lots of parties there.
Yeah, it was July 4th. And they come from all over the island, you see them, they all celebrate. No air conditioning, you see. Can we talk now?
Yeah. Let's see. Another roll. Gwendolyn Ann.
I think we're over at the Manila Polo Club now. Yeah. This is the Manila Polo Club. And they used to get these polo players, they make their tour all around the world and they play. They made their livelihood playing.
Yeah. Didn't they once try to have you treat a polo pony once?
Oh yes, Jose Osorio. When I first landed to check out this hospital here, the first thing he asked me, what is my handicap ever to in playing polo? He had a string of polo ponies with him, and he was very disturbed that I didn't have a polo pony. This was Manila. He was very disturbed. He said, gee, now we can have a team set up, you see.
What year did you first arrive in the Philippines?
I came to the Philippines to spend Christmas vacation in
What year?
37.
Uh-huh.
And this was a parade. This is the time when Field Marshal General MacArthur was there.
Right. And you treated his wife?
She was a patient. And interesting enough, years later, after World War II, where she'd met people from all over the world, and I went to a wedding of one of the Osorio Chill family in Greenwich, Connecticut, in this huge estate. One of these tents outside, they're all set up. There she is. She says, oh, hello, Dr. Greentree. I said, gee, Mr. MacArthur, how could you possibly remember me? She just smiled, but the memories go back. I said, you've been mingling with all the great people. But this was years later, and it's sort of, you remember people those years, you see.
When was that party? 40s, 50s?
Oh, we were married here already. That must have been about 50s.
Yeah.
And we came to this huge estate near Greenwich, Connecticut. And we came to entrance, there was a bus, and you park your car, and they drive you up to the grounds where the wedding was and all that, you see.
Yeah.
This is Manila, I think, July 4th. See, the Osorios were fantastically wealthy people, but they kept themselves anonymous. Everything they did is on the QT. Is against, there's the Manila Hotel where MacArthur stayed, which was like, this is the pool over the Manila Hotel. I don't remember. We're all just sitting around the pool. I have no idea who he is. Now what this is, polo again. Frightfully fashionable.
Didn't they once have a polo pony that had an injured leg?
Oh yes, that was over on the islands there. And they said, gee, no, I don't know if it was Jose Sarah's private horse. And there's the horse laying on it, and it's got dislocated hip. Do something. I didn't know what to do. So what we did was, we hitched up a great big rope to the leg here, and we put him to sleep, and we tried to pull him. Didn't work. This is the Mayan. This is the boat going from the Philippines, from our islands up north to Manila, you see.
Yeah.
And that's what people come around. This is what they call an inner island boat. It was very famous until they got sunk by the Japs or in a storm. That's it, they're the man. And it was an overnight trip from Manila. There's Jose Osorio. And there's old Hank. I got a letter from him just recently. And he was the father-in-law of William Holden. This is his father-in-law.
Uh-huh.
Iloilo. To go to Negros, it goes to Iloilo, then you take another ferry from there to our island, you see. But old Ankinson, he was funny, and he's sort of gone native. And there's the Maya there, and that's the inner island boat going all the ways up north. This is the one went to Zamboanga too, you see.
Yeah.
It goes up and down, you see. I think that's the scene in Manila. Oh, there's my hospital over there. Isn't that a beautiful sight?
Yeah.
This is New Year's Eve there. There's our kind. You see that bald head. He's about 6'5", you see. I delivered her she married one of the Osorios. And that was Mr. Greenfield. He was the general manager there. Oh, there's old Frankenberger. Oh, my goodness gracious. Everybody wore coats, but as soon as he came in, most of them take it off, you see. This fellow here was an engineer, and he had quite a history.
Right or the left?
Up the beard.
Oh.
That's clear she was pregnant at that time. He was a real Cossack. Loretta. Her son came to see me here. Now this is you want to go swimming along the ocean? Here we are. Here's one of the islands. This is Negros here.
Right.
Isn't that beautiful?
Uh-huh. What happened when her son came to see you?
What?
The son who came to see you.
Well, he came in, and I was delighted. He was the older brother, and he was the older one who was so terribly, terribly sick.
Oh.
And he came in to visit. This was right after my accident, you see.
Oh.
And that you got to realize now we got starvation and things like you can't believe down there. Because what happened, Huey? Our government used to give support to sugar industry. They guarantee buying so much sugar at such and such a price. And when that lasted, it was great prosperity. But what happened? In recent years, we took it away. And when they took it away, starvation. And this is one of the worst areas of starvation in the Far East now.
Yeah. Of course, mismanagement didn't help also.
Well, mismanagement, that's right too. But it was the sugar quota. We gave them a sugar quota guaranteed to purchase so many pickles of sugar at so and so time. And that would guarantee, there's the Manila Hotel again. There's the bay. But doing that would guarantee pain. It looks like a boat there. I think that's the president's yacht. Manuel. No, this is a fire drill on the mine. So we have all kind of ideas how to help the Philippines, and they say this area is the worst. But if we'd have given them a sugar quota now, guaranteed, this would bring back some kind of prosperity. And I wrote about it. I tried to get the government to do it. No. That is a dog, Huey.
Yeah.
I don't know who dog it is.
Well, we can't have a.
Now we're going to this old sugar right on. There's Tatiana. She's a very wonderful person. There's our hospital again. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
There's Bill Down. I can't think of her name now. They're He was, there we are. I'd say that's a beautiful. That was the most modern hospital in the Far East. And we had air conditioning in surgery, in their x-ray department. We had private rooms when they were,
Yeah.
where they had none in the United States. We had it there. Bill Down used to be, he was an office manager, and he came from the Malay States. And he was in the Scots Guards during World War I. But periodically he'd go on a toot. And he'd never drink, but he'd say, he'd ever say, come see, come sign. There he is. That, when he said that word, I know he's off for about days at a time. I'd never seen drunkards before. And he'd go on these terrible drunks. And it'd always be when the front office comes down from Manila. He just couldn't stand that stress coming in. There's a patient in the hospital. This is the sugar central where they take the sugar and they grind it up, you see. And incidentally, this waste material there, they made gasoline out of it.
Yeah.
And all the automobiles that drove around there, and there we are. There's the old Father Verheugen. He was a Dutchman then, and he was a priest. He was always half plastered, but he could tell the patients they're dying to him so quiet. He was absolutely fun.
And they made methanol out of the sugar cane, didn't they?
Yeah, but they drove their cars on it. He visits from the United States. That's Dr. Gallardo. There's the sisters. There's the sugars. He always had an odor there, Huey. There he is, honey. He always had a little gin under his belt. But he's always drunk, but he talked to these people and they're dying. Huey, it was just wonderful. They're dying and he pees them down and they know they're going to go to heaven or something. It was absolutely wonderful. There's the second floor of the hospital there. And one interesting on there. Where's Tatiana again? So close.
The hospital again.
Well, this was the big thing. This was unique of its own kind. There's another. That's my Jean McLean. There's Nessie Gould. She married Bill, and she was coming out from Scotland to meet Bill Dool, and she meets on a plane a member of the German embassy in Tokyo. This when things were very bad then. And she wanted to marry him. And here her brother is an officer in the British Army, and here she wants on the verge of ditching Bill and to run away and marry this fellow. But common sense prevailed at the end, and she married Bill Dool. Not too good. That's Loretta. All of a sudden the name comes up. I think this must be up in Bank. No, this is the golf clubs. Golf club. Oh, there's Don Hanning. He was here too. He was with the FBI after World War II. During World War II, he got captured by the Japanese, and he was in prison throughout the whole war. And while he was in prison, he met a girl, and he got married there. Oh, there's one of our ambulances. There's a put-on act here. Oh, we just got our new ambulance. That's what it was.
Yeah.
There's Leonard B. Oh, and this was a very interesting thing. Most of the Philippines, a large percent, were not married. And they're having kids. So the Sorios are very religious. They decided to have a big celebration. And they got the bishop, I think, from Iloilo came over. And this is a marrying day.
Yeah.
And they married about 100, 200 Filipinos on there. And the Osorios gave them gifts, you see, and all that. Oh, there's J.J. Osorio. But they gave gifts, you see, for them to get married. And this was a big celebration. I don't know how many got married that day. It was a big, big party, and they were giving gifts out and everything. And the Osorios assumed all the expense. These are multi-millionaires, and nobody knew anything about it except the banks.
No.
Now it's up at the Benguet Consolidated Mining Company under Hauserman. He was just the other way. He was always in the newspaper, bragging what he did and so forth. He did, but
Yeah.
not nearly as much as the Osorios and who I was under there too, you see. There's a tough dog.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Franco, my monkey. I had a monkey named Franco. And this dog tried to go, finally had to get rid of Franco. She barks so much, you see. And people says you can't do this. You can't name a monkey Franco, and this is, everybody was pro-Franco in the Philippines, you see.
Yeah.
There's a husband.
You know, I had a friend from the Philippines who said they were deathly superstitious, fairly superstitious. They weren't, was it afraid of vampires, I think.
Oh, there's
Sugar.
Burger King.
She was saying that they were watching this Frank Langella Dracula movie, the one that came out about 5-10 years ago. And Filipinos were watching it. They had all the lights on in the house, in the bathroom, everyone, the whole house lit up. And they were all huddled in the living room watching this movie with Frank Langella as a vampire.
Periodically, a Filipino get caught in there and they lose an arm.
What
or
was
so.
that, the sugar plant?
Yeah, sugar. Just picture this beautiful white building set up. Then we made an infectious disease addition adjoining that there, because we had tetanus, gas gangrene, and so forth and so forth. So the Osorios, I told them, they built that up there too. Now, all these cottages where these people were very, very close together. So M.J. Osorio, he came in from London, the head of the family. I said, we got a problem with sanitation here. I'd like to put these big barrels here between each of these cottages and throw trash in there. I said, I don't think that's a good idea. Why don't we sort of tear down every one of these other one of these huts and build new huts down there? Just like that. So they went ahead and rebuilt hundreds of new houses there and the others they tore down because just like that. Oh, this, I think this was, what do you call these chickens they fight? These
Cockfight.
cockfights. That's what this was, cockfight. They love that. Here you can see it.
Yeah.
This was against the law, but we went to see it. Boy, these cocks were really tough, Huey. And the Filipinos will bet their last penny. Terrible gamblers. You can't see, but you can see them. I wish I could come out there. That'll be over now.
They used to do it with terriers too, or they still do. Pit bull fight.
Then we had one Spaniard, Jesus something or other. He was the world's worst gambler. And one of my very grateful friends gave me a new Buick as a gift. And also the party, the Asorios gave him a gift. So I'll tell you, a double or nothing. Okay, he takes out, just like that. Okay. Oh, this is up in Baguio, where the gold mines are. And each year they have the competition and first aid between representatives of the various gold mines. And I was one of the general judges. I was a high-ranking one there, and they had government officials and so forth and so forth. And this was very highly competitive. And a fellow named Jarrett, J-A-R-E-T-T, he was the head of this whole thing. Wonderful thing, because mine disasters is a reality. There is old Dutch Houseman. He is in sharp contrast to the Asorios. He owned these gold mines, multi-millionaire, and came originally from near Cincinnati. Well, there's Virginia Cotton. She was a dear friend of mine. These are the Egro, Nancy. Actually, these were the Filipino soldiers, and and these were the Philippine scouts, but they put on these uniforms here, I think, to demonstrate. No, these were the Egros, I think. I'm not sure. This was on a Sunday due to native dancing. These are the hill people up in the mountains, you see. And on Sunday, the natives come down, they bring out dogs, and you buy them at the market so you can eat them. Mind you, this is 1938, 1939, Huey.
Yeah.
What the heck is his name? I don't remember. See, I came to the Philippines to spend Christmas there. And I had a free trip over to Europe, going to the ship's doctor rather than pay my passage. And I came to the Philippines to spend with several people in the gold mines in Korea. They'd worked over the gold mines here. And when I came out there, I went up to see Dr. Reed, the head of the Notre Dame Hospital in Baguio. And we're talking to him. All of a sudden, while I'm visiting on New Year's Eve, I get a phone call. Please stop up to see me. And what had happened, Mr. Greenfield, that very handsome elderly man there you saw before, with all the other people. He was sick, and he was telling them about the Samaritan doctor. He said, we're building a new hospital out there, Southern Islands. And it was highly competitive. People from all of the senior doctors in the Philippines were trying to get it, including this one doctor who came out the head of the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital. And so they asked me, I went down to see them, and I said, I'm interested. I'm leaving tomorrow for Hong Kong to go to Europe. He said, let's call up and see whether your boat's on time. He gets on the phone. He says, your boat's delayed 3 days. You can fly down to the Philippines to see the hospital. I wasn't going to buy a pig in a poke, you see. So I went down and saw this beautiful hospital. I arrived down there that night. There's a phone call from Manila. J.J. Osorio wants to see me immediately. I said, gee, something's wrong. Maybe they found something out bad of me. Because I told him that he could send telegrams. They wanted me to do, he wanted me to give me evidence what I am. I said, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving tomorrow for Hong Kong. He said, let me call up and see where your boat's on time. So he called up and he said, your boat's delayed. I flew down there. I get a phone call from the Southern Islands, come up immediately. And I came up there. He said, Dr. Greentree, I'll be honest. We thought you were far too young for this position here. Everybody wants, but these cablegrams you got, and there were 3 of them, from the gold mines in Korea, from Dr. McSparron in Yokohama, and from the Church of Scotland Medical School in Moncton. They sent these 3 long cablegrams. He said, with this, the job is yours. I said, listen, there's one thing though. You got to pass the examinations. They're in about 10 days. What? Chemistry, anatomy, physiology, tropical medicine? Well, I try to stay around in Manila for about 3 days, and every time I get down, settle there, they want to show me something for the hospital and something like that. So finally I said, no, I got to get away to study. So they flew me down to the Southern Island, and for 1 week I crammed. And a month went by. I didn't know I had passed it or not. There was hundreds that take the examination. And then one morning, I get 2 telegrams from J.J. Osorio. I still have them. And Jeeves, you were number 1. And the other doctor in the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital, he was number 2. And there was editorials in all the newspapers. What's wrong with our medical schools in the Philippines? When 2 foreign doctors come out 1 and 2.
But then about your boat.
What?
Your boat. They
Well,
said the boat had been delayed.
Yeah, the boat was delayed. It wasn't delayed. So then he told me, he said, Dr. Greentree, that we decided that if these cables we get are not good, we're going to pay your passage to Europe. So they lied to me.
Your boat had sailed.
Yeah, it came on right time, and they say, this is the golf course at the country club over in Baguio, and they did not allow Filipinos on there. And I was very upset because there was an American nurse married a Filipino doctor, and by God, they wouldn't let him join the club. I thought this was dreadful, Huey. And this was due primarily to the British. The British were responsible for all these. They set the image, you see.
Yeah.
Now this is a plane that flies in from Manila to Baguio over the mountains. And let me tell you, Huey, this is not a simple thing. You're going over the mountains and all of a sudden, boom, you're right over this field. You go into this hollow and that's Baguio. Now I think we're back in Manila again. You notice that car's over there? That's a Buick in the front there.
Yeah.
You see that front? This is the main street there, and his name suddenly slipped my mind. This is the main street in the Manoa. How are we doing? Now we're up at the gold mines now. These are the Benguet Consolidated Mining Company up there. Now this is the largest gold mine complex in the Orient, and the one in Korea was the second largest.
Where is this one located?
This is up in the mountains of Baguio, near Baguio. And the main hospital was in Baguio. There was about a 300-bed hospital run by this is my home then. They took over, they arranged for me to take over the home of Elizalde. Elizalde was the Philippine ambassador to here. And they arranged for me to take over his whole home, servants and all that. This is a plane here, which came and I think flew me down. That's right, they flew me down to see a patient in Negros. One of the sugar planers got sick, and he would let nobody take care of him except me. So I got permission. They put me on a plane. I flew down there. There wasn't a damn thing wrong with it, just saying everything was all right. And then I went on to say, well, what do I owe you? I have no idea. Well, he wrote me out a check. I hate to tell him, it was several thousand pesos, when a peso was a peso. It was worth about $3,000 or $4,000. I said, wow. And I had the most wonderful time visiting with all the people in Negros. I'd left him about 6 months before, you see.
Yeah. It's quite rough terrain.
Oh, yes. This is real mountain country up there. And that's the road you drive down from Baguio to Manila. It's quite a ride.
Yeah.
And we'll get up to one of the gold mines, and I'll show you one of our station hospitals there. This way they go up to where they lived up. There's one of the young doctors out there. I got a lot of these statues from these people around here, you in the living room and all that.
The wooden ones?
Yeah. There's house. Oh, now this is on the good ship, the Tatutu Maru. I'm going back to the United States. I decided I'm going back to the United States at that time. And this was the Tatutu Maru, the Japanese thing on there. And I came across an invitation from the captain's ship to invite me to a special dinner he's having on the boat. Here's Walter Hausen. He's Swiss. We both came out at the same time. This was a play they put on for us. I could speak English, a little Japanese, a few words of Chinese Mandarin. He came out. He could speak Mandarin Chinese fluent, Cantonese Chinese, just like this. He had a gift for language. Well, there's Millie Simpson. She was my very dear friend. You're going to see more of her later. She's the one who went up to Canada, visited in Canada with me.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got footage of that.
What?
We've got lots of footage of that
Yeah.
on the next roll.
Yeah. There's a Frenchman there.
This is on your trip back to the U.S.
Yeah, first time. So I came back, and then I went back again, to settle up my affairs, and I came back, you see.
So you did it twice. I didn't
Oh,
know
yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
The latest and fashionable C-ware.
These are all English, 99% English. So I came back, found my dad was passed away. Then I realized I was not going to, had to take care of Marzi, so I had to go back to the Philippines to settle my things. So I went back, you see.
So you'd come back when you heard your father had died.
Well, I got word that he was ailing,
Yeah.
and I took my time to come back. I went to ballet and all that, and the time I got there, he passed away. So then I decided I had to come back, and so what I did, rather than purchase a ticket, I got myself into the ship's doctor, got a free trip.
Yeah.
This is the gambit I learned out there. Oh, there's Manola. He was number 2 up in Baguio. He was my closest friend there. He reminds me of this fellow, who was the security advisor.
Ollie North?
No, the other one. McFarlane.
Oh, yeah, Jensen
He
Farley.
looked just like him. We were a team. We go out together, Huey. And you always have to have a smooth guy along with you, then things go good. And he was an assistant general manager at one of the gold mines. So these wives had come up from Manila for during the summer season.
Yeah.
We two would always go together, you see. We go dancing together and so forth and so forth. Here's this another one of the first aid things. This was a big thing there. I got the program upstairs. Now, a lot of these people up here, Huey, were in prison and put in Santa Tomas throughout the whole war. All these white people there.
So you were lucky you left when you did.
And I came back the first time. I received a letter from the Admiral over at Cavite wanting to get us a reserve commission where to take the whole house with myself, go and put on activate in case there was a war, you see. There's part of
Where was this?
It's Manila Bay. It's part of our fleet there. That looks like the Manila Hotel again. That's Manila. This right in front of the Manila Hotel. That's right. Yeah, these are they're sort of like gunboats, I guess you'd call them.
Yeah.
Now, MacArthur lived in here. Oh, this is the Army-Navy Club there, U.S. Army-Navy Club. This was the time I received a letter from my dad that he had a friend who was a retired colonel, medical corps, and he told me that he's got a friend there, an army officer, a captain over in Manila, regular army. He'd like me to meet. The fellow was named, it sounded Jewish, Eisenhower or something like that. And he was a captain at that time under MacArthur. So when I got up to Manila, the few times I have vacation, I could think anything less we want to do, Huey, to spend an evening with an Army captain. And because at that time, the regular Army had a terrible reputation. The salary was nothing, and they tried to live high, wide, and handsome. So you're out with them, you're always picking up the tab and so forth. So when I got up to Manila, I never bothered, never thinking for a minute that this fellow Eisenhower.
Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Was right, and he got into it. He was one of MacArthur's aides, And they had a big parade there, and it didn't work out. And MacArthur accused Eisenhower of doing everything wrong, and they got a row, and Eisenhower requested being transferred to the United States, and he was transferred there with a poor recommendation from Eisenhower.
Yeah.
So,
Or from MacArthur.
yeah, from MacArthur. So this, all the time, was this bitterness between the two, you see. Eisenhower felt he'd been unjustly accused, and this bad recommendation was not good, you see.
Yeah.
And then when he found that Ike became so very important, this was long wormwoods. My
Yeah.
God, this looks to me like we're back in the
This is the Bally roll, the color.
oh, this Valley.
Yeah.
Oh, this is terrible. But what happened here, I suppose I should say,
Yeah.
when I was on the Chisalanka, when I decided I'm going to go to Bali, go to the Dutch East Indies on a holiday, I had my trusty camera. I had good pictures. And it dropped out of my hand on the deck, and I picked it up, and it looked all right. And I kept on, and I took about 15 rolls of film there. And Huey, it broke my heart. All these pictures were all completely out of focus.
Yeah.
The worst thing was that they were color, and the only way you can have them processed was, I think it was the boat I came in on.
Yeah.
The only way you could get a process was that you had to send it to Honolulu. So I sent these 15 rolls or so to Honolulu. Oh, this is, it is crossing the equator.
Yeah. King Neptune and his court.
And by gosh, I landed in the United States. They lost them. And finally, months go by, I received this parcel from the Hawaiian Islands. Opened them up, and practically all of them were. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so unhappy. I crossed it several times, crossing the equator.
Did you ever have the proof that you'd done it to avoid this?
Oh, I got a certificate. Yeah.
Someday I'll have to follow you south across the equator. I keep getting invitations to go to Australia. I have a friend who owns a ranch in Australia.
Well, unless you got something to do, Huey,
Yeah.
it's sort of boring. You find people working there. That was me there. They put on. You didn't see that?
Yeah, I saw it. You can recognize the Greentree profile even out of focus.
So, anyways, and I told you the story why they sent it to Hawaiian Islands. Originally, Eastman Kodak had planned to set up their processing for color in Tokyo, and they sent all the equipment out there. Rather costly, I presume. And after they got it, guess what? They refused. He says, we're not going to give you permission to use it. Said, okay, we're going to send it to Shanghai. You can't remove it. And there it was in storage all that time, Huey. So that's when they found that the only way you could get things processed was you had to send it to Honolulu.
Yeah.
I didn't know how this came out. I bet the others were like this too, and I looked at them, I was so disgusted I threw them away.
Yeah, it's too bad because this is... If the longer shots are more in focus...
Really, they were like this, and I didn't know, they had nothing at all to do with it.
Well,
I
there had been 15 more rolls of film.
You can see these, look at this.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
Tatiana.
And as a film student, I thought it was funny. This is the old Technicolor process that they had during the 40s. And it was...
Well, let me tell you about the other. So what happened was, I came here and I don't see any Americans there at all. I told you about this. So then it turned out that Valley in 1940 was the world's headquarters for the ASET in Bali. They came mostly from all over Europe, Central Europe, Hungary and all that, Germany, and they came all over there, and they had beautiful homes. And I see they're all empty. So what happened? They got a new Governor General of the Dutch East Indies. He was a Dutchman, a Hollander, and his wife was an American. And when she heard about this, like a typical American woman, she carried on so that he issued an edict to arrest them all. So it is, they got word out, so word got out to these people, and they left by these little sampans and rowboats and everything. They fled like so-and-so to get away before the Dutch troops got them. They left their homes intact and everything and that.
What were they doing? They got their ire up?
They're lesbians, homosexuals. It was the world's headquarters for homosexuals. Not in the United States or Central Europe, Germany, and countries like that.
Yeah.
And you see these beautiful homes all empty. So as far as I know, I was about the only American around there at that time, that whole island. And it's only a matter of months later that the Japanese came in, landed and took over the whole thing, and destroy a way of existence, which was absolutely beautiful. I got a book upstairs you'd like to read about the story of Bali by Vicky Baum, historical Bali.
Yeah.
I bought some beautiful things there.
Yeah.
All got busted. And then I told you about this here.
The funeral pyre.
Yeah. You want me to repeat it?
Sure.
Okay. What happens? The Balinese got a wonderful, wonderful religion. When you die, guess what? You come back to Bali in a different form, healthier and better people. So it's no great fear at all. It's a moment of happiness. But the Balinese like to do things in a big way. So what they did was, say, if you and I die, the family will pack it up and you make a temporary burial. And then when a Raja or the head of the area dies, a prince dies, and he dies, they're going to have a big celebration. Then they dig up all the bodies. Then they all have a procession all there together. And the prince or the Raja is put on this tall frame up there, and they carry him through the streets there to the burial grounds. And there it's all fixed up like a July 4th holiday. Everybody's cooking and eating and so forth. And then at the sign of the gong, they light the fires and everything gets burned up. You see the bodies burning there. And it's a matter of celebration here. It's the most incredible story.
Yeah,
See, you can see these fellows carry them, and this was heavy. There's hundreds of these fellows carrying this tall, look at it, it's swaying back and forth. And his body, there was a step there, the step ladder, they carry him up to the top, you see it?
Yeah.
And his body is put on the top. And then when they got out to the burial grounds, they take him down, put him out. And there's cheering and dancing and singing and all that. Yeah, they bring him up there. So that those who die enjoy the pleasure. These bodies enjoy the pleasure of having a funeral like this.
Yeah.
VD was rampant there. I went on to the Dutch hospital. It was mostly GC gonorrhea. And we had tremendous amount of goiter there. Because to go to Bali, you had to cross the mountains. Up in the mountains, there was all these goiters. And these Dutch doctors were doing so much beautiful goiter surgery. And their hospital was just delightful. Where are they getting up there now? You think this is easy, Huey? That's swaying back and forth. It's a trick to get them on there.
Yeah. Actually, you've got about 4 rolls of film on this, so you must not have thrown out as
I
much
thought
as you
so.
thought. You've got about a third of those rolls here. I remember a funny story about Technicolor. That Technicolor equipment, which is in Japan, you know, they switched over to a different process in the
Yeah, yeah.
1950s.
Yeah,
And they stopped using the Technicolor. Well, the thing's,
yeah, look at the back.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Technicolor holds up better over the years. You know how modern color film
Yeah.
fades.
This holds up?
Yeah. Look how, you know, the color on this and the color of the film you took in Canada the next year. Whereas the more modern process fades after about 5 or 10 years.
Modern.
Yeah. And anyways, about 10 years ago, they started trying. A film producer wanted to do a film, and he wanted to do it in the old style Technicolor. And he found out all the Technicolor equipment was destroyed. There was no more Technicolor equipment. They couldn't process the film. They couldn't make it, with one exception, in the Far East. Technicolor equipment. It was in China now.
I bet they must have got it from Japan.
They might have gotten it from Japan. It might be that very equipment you were talking about.
Because it was over in Japan. They held you can't use it.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been Huey. They must have purchased this or gotten it
But
over.
it's the only Technicolor equipment in the world. It's the true Technicolor. They still have stuff they call Technicolor, but it's not the same process.
Well, I wonder whether after the war they got some from the United States. I don't know.
Yeah. Now they start the fires.
Yeah. Everybody's so happy. Because as soon as they bury them, they come back to new life, healthy. And what's heaven? Heaven's Valley. It's beautiful. There's food there. There's everything. Now that's what I call a religion.
Yeah.
We had so much feeding, so much time together. You go in the hospital, they all had swollen balls, testicles, you see. This, all these costs, epididymitis, all these things. And the Dutch had the most wonderful and efficient healthcare system there. That in Java itself, they had a superb hospital there and training program for tropical disease. It's one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
Then they turned it over they gave them independence.
I think that was the last of it.
It came to nothing, Huey.